Hey guys, it's me, Shell360, and this is the review for episode 13 and 14 of Descendants of the Sun. It's going to be difficult for me to do this review because a lot of stuff happened in these two episodes. It was almost like another mini finale, but also there's like different timelines that are happening here and there that eventually they converge into one, but trying to talk about one and then going back in time and talking about the other is going to make this review a little bit awkward, but I have to do what I have to do. So I'm going to start not with where the series started, but I'm going to start with our military side. So on the military side, Big Boss Wolf and the rest of the team are back in Korea. They are now back to being a part of Team Alpha or Alpha Team. I can't remember which order it goes in. And because they've been reinstated into Alpha Team, they get what we call in America R&R, which is rest and relaxation. You get 3 days off to kind of party, visit with family, talk with friends, all that stuff before you have to go on another mission. Well, before they go on R&R, Wolf goes ahead and puts in his paperwork to be discharged from the military. And he goes to give the paperwork to Lieutenant Yoon's father. But before he gives the paperwork to Lieutenant Yoon's father, him and Big Boss decide to go to this, I guess it's like a bar slash restaurant place, and just drink straight for 3 days. Like, no sleep, no leaving, just staying in the same bar restaurant and eat and drink for 3 days, which seems nuts. And I didn't know that Korea had places that would just let you sit up and eat and drink for 3 days straight and never leave, but apparently they had those in Korea. So Korea's got a pretty strong drinking culture, because I don't even think we have places like that in America. But yeah, they're there eating and drinking for 3 days. Dr. Kang is kind of in and out checking on Big Boss. Lieutenant Yoon is kind of in and out checking on them. After they've done their marathon drinking thing, it kind of ends when Dr. Kang comes to drink with them, and instead of kind of keeping an eye on them, she ends up getting totally plastered, and Big Boss has to take her home. Well, when he takes her home, she's drunk and doing Eggio and just being really silly, and he hears a noise. When he turns around, it's actually Dr. Kong's mom, who was kind of hiding out because she wanted to see what was going to happen. So of course, this is really awkward for Big Boss, because he's meeting the mom and he wants to make a good impression, but here he is dragging his drunk girlfriend back home. That doesn't look the best when you're trying to meet the parents. But the mom has a really cool attitude about it. She's kind of funny. She kind of trips him up in words and stuff. And I think he left a good impression, so that was good for them. Now, when it comes to Wolf, after the drinking marathon, he goes to turn in his discharge paperwork to General Yoon, Lieutenant Yoon's dad. And Lieutenant Yoon is confused because, if you recall, when she thought she was dying, she had said, if I make it through, you don't need to discharge my man. He needs to stay in the military. Well, when he turns in his discharge, she kind of shows her hand and is like, what? We made a deal. So her and Wolf go outside and they have an argument. And her argument is, I made my dad promise that he wasn't going to discharge you because I want you to be the soldier that you are. He's mad at her for making a deal behind his back and kind of undermining his manliness and saying, your deal had nothing to do with mine. Basically, this is what it is. Wolf is a very insecure person, even though he's very secure in his ability to perform tasks at work and for being the soldier that he is. When it comes to kind of his own personal self-esteem and value, he's very insecure. And he's got a lot of emotional walls. And with General Yoon being Lieutenant Yoon's father, General Yoon probably, in his own way, without meaning to, reinforces all the negative thoughts that Wolf has about himself. So in his mind, he's got to do things to prove to General Yoon that he deserves to be with Lieutenant Yoon. And for him, not only does he feel like he needs to be discharged to become the husband material that Lieutenant Yoon deserves, but for him, it makes him feel like he's being cast as being weak when Lieutenant Yoon has to intercede on his behalf with the father. And I think Lieutenant Yoon understands that, but at the same time, Lieutenant Yoon is thinking, we're a couple, we're a team, and I wouldn't want you to have to sacrifice something like your military career for me, because when I'm with you, I'm always going to think about what you want to be and what you made yourself become to be with me. I don't want you to resent me one day. But they both kind of have their own opinions of how the situation went, and they decide to break up. So Wolf is not with his woman anymore. Big Boss, him and Dr. Kang are still doing good. They go on this mission, and the mission is that they have to guard the representative of South Korea while that representative goes to North Korea. So they are acting as bodyguards. They got on these really nice swag suits. They look really great. Well, when they go up to North Korea, Big Boss is guarding the door. And who is the soldier that's guarding the door next to him? It's our North Korean captain. I told you guys he was going to be back. Like, I swear I didn't look at the previews. I literally made a guess that he was going to be back, and he was back. So, yeah, we've got our North Korean guard. Let's call him Lieutenant Scar because he's got a huge scar going across his face. So Lieutenant Scar from the North Korean unit, he's also acting as bodyguard. And even though they did have their big fight in episode 1, they have kind of like a grudging respect for each other. So he's like, hey, while I'm here, Big Boss says to Captain Scar, while I'm here, can you take me for famous Pyongyang noodles? Because I guess the buckwheat noodles in North Korea are legendary. So they're at this noodle restaurant, and Captain Scar tells Big Boss, hey, I'm going to be going on vacation in a couple of weeks. Well, it seems like really random stuff to say to somebody, but of course this is foreshadowing in the story. So then, a couple of weeks later, it's time for Big Boss and his team to protect the South Korean representative when the representative from North Korea comes down south. Because, you know, everything when it comes to politics between North and South, it has to be kind of reciprocal or else everybody gets offended, political policies are breached, war breaks out, stuff like that. Well, Big Boss and Wolf are kind of standing downstairs waiting for they're doing a rehearsal actually of the whole summit meeting, and they're waiting for, I guess, the car from the rehearsal to show up. I'm not exactly sure. And Captain Scar arrives, and of course they're like really suspicious because he doesn't have on his uniform. Big Boss remembers him saying he was going to be on vacation. They're thinking, okay, is this guy fixing to go crazy? And then the next thing we hear are gunshots. Now we have to stop the military timeline and go back over to Dr. Kang's timeline. So Dr. Kang came back from Urk, and she's welcomed at the hospital by the welcome committee after everybody from the Hanseng team have come back from the war zone. And of course, who should be leading the welcome committee but Chairman Sleezo? And of course, he's just such a jerk, an asshole, bitter bitch. And Dr. Kang was like, you know what? I'm not even sweating that because I'm fixing to be ghost. I'm fixing to turn in my resignation, open my own clinic, be the bad bitch that I am. Fuck that guy. Unfortunately, somehow or another, the bank finds out that she's not working for the hospital anymore, and because she's not working for the hospital, they won't give her the money for her clinic because she's unemployed, which seems like bullshit because, like, you mean I'm supposed to have a full-time job when I'm trying to run my own business? That makes no sense to me. So, because they won't give her the loan, she's forced to go back and beg the chairman for her job back. And of course, Chairman Sleezo, being the jerk that he is, won't give her old job back. Instead, he makes her be what is the lowest of the low at their hospital, an ER doctor. Not just any ER doctor, but the ER doctor that only works night shifts and has to take everybody else's shift and be on call for them. So yeah, he kind of demotes her, but it's okay because she's in the ER, and for plot device reasons, that's where she needs to be. So she's feeling kind of bad about all this. Also, you know, her and Big Boss, he comes back to Korea, and she's thinking that they're going to carry on and have fun dates and, you know, do lovey-dovey things. And there's a little bit of lovey-doveyness, but really not enough to kind of meet her expectations in her mind. Along with that, she's back at the hospital, and it's the same old, same old. Dr. Bitch is on her tail talking about, you know, oh, you had your scandal with the chairman. Now look at you. You work at the ER. Me. All you did was go to Urk and give out vaccines. Me. When she says that, the rest of the team from Urk really want to stab her in her eyes with their chopsticks, but they don't. But yeah, same old in terms of hospital politics. but also a little bit different because the team has changed. Like, they all have really had to go through a lot, going through the earthquake and the disease and everything else. In fact, at one point, the table starts to vibrate and everybody like gets under the table to duck for cover. It's a guy outside working a jackhammer doing some construction work. But I mean, little things like that have really, made an impact on them, and they're not the same people they used to be. Speaking of people coming back from a war zone, apparently Dr. Onu and his baby mama, fiance, wife, whatever, when he came back, he gave her some of that Onu, and the doctor was like, listen, y'all are 2 weeks away from having this baby. Y'all can't be doing this kind of stuff no more. And they're like, oh, sorry. But yeah, back at the hospital, things are going okay. She's working in the ER. Things seem to be going all right. And all of a sudden, 2 ambulances pull up. One pulls up, and the man comes out, and he is a gunshot wound victim. You look down. Who is it? It's Captain Scar. So the next ambulance pulls up, and Dr. Kang is going to get that one because Dr. Song took the first gunshot victim. Who's in the second ambulance? Big Boss, looking like death. And of course, Dr. Kang's like, not my baby! But she manages to kind of pull herself together and be a doctor. Now, this is where, like, the worst part of episode 14 happened. And if you don't agree with me, that's cool. But I'm just saying, in terms of somebody who grew up watching, like, ER, Chicago Hope, medical shows, this whole sequence of events just struck as bullshit. So, she's working on Big Boss. He's come in, gunshot wounds everywhere. He's hurt. At some point, he goes into cardiac arrest. He flatlines out. They're trying to shock him with the paddles. That's not working. She's giving him CPR. It's not working. His heart is not beating. So she stops and she's crying because she thinks he's dead. And then he says, that hurts. He starts to respond, and slowly his heartbeat goes up. Do you know that, like, right after his heartbeat goes up, the guy literally gets up out of what seems like death warmed over and starts asking about the guy in the other room, starts trying to pull things off of himself, trying to get up out the stretcher. He manages to do it. Why does he do it? Because the guy from North Korea, Captain Scar, he's holding Nurse Dance hostage. Now, this guy came in here riddled with bullet wounds, somehow or another manages to get enough energy to not only get up off of the stretcher, but hold a nurse hostage with a knife. But he ends up like bleeding so much that he loses his strength and falls back on the ground. And of course, Dr. Kang has to help him because, she's a doctor. Doctors have to help. And Big Boss is like, you need to go help him. And she's like, you guys need to take Big Boss and, strap him to a gurney and work on him. Put a cast on him. A cast on what? I don't know. We never did see this cast that she put on him. I don't know if it was supposed to be a cast on a leg, a cast on a foot. I don't know. We never did see the cast. But anyway, after everyone's been treated, Dr. Kang, while she's doing surgery on the guy from North Korea, removing all these bullet wounds, I counted 3 bullets and they were still working on this guy. That's how shot up he was. Who is he holding hostage? Anyway, she's removing these bullets and she notices he has a scar inside of his arm. Well, they go ahead and they open that up. Turns out there was a microchip there. There's some information there. So this guy was obviously not in South Korea for a vacation. And then they have kind of a flashback as to what actually happened when Captain Scar showed up on the scene. So as you recall, Big Boss and Wolf were doing the rehearsal for when the South Korean delegation arrives. Captain Scar shows up and he's like, hey guys, I don't have any weapons. I gotta tell you something. All of a sudden, a van with a bunch of guys with like ski masks on jump out to kidnap the guy from North Korea, Captain Scar. They're shooting at everyone inside with like machine guns. Like, it is really going down. Somehow or another, as they're driving off, Big Boss manages to like again become a superhero, slide over car hoods and run through parking lots. And at one point he's standing in front of their van. These are guys with machine guns. They're firing at him like rapid fire. They're coming for him with this van. He manages to shoot a fire extinguisher, which causes smoke, which leads them to like not drive straight like they were doing before the fire extinguisher exploded. They run into a van. He's shot up because, you have enough people with machine guns shoot at you, something's gonna land. And that's how he ended up in the hospital in the first place. That's how the guy from North Korea got captured and put into the hospital too. Turns out that the guys that were with the ski mask that were shooting at the guy from North Korea were from some fake country, Moldova, we don't care, some other country. And they claim that they were there because he was using a fake Moldovan passport to get into Korea. Whatever. It matters nothing. It means nothing. But yeah, anyway, so of course, Big Boss and the rest of the military troop that he's with have to figure out, like, what is this guy doing here? What is the thing that's going on? So, of course, they have to videotape them, asking him, what's your name, your rank, all this stuff. Would you like asylum under Geneva Code Conventions, And the guy from North Korea, he's not budging. He's not saying anything because, of course, he doesn't trust any of those South Korean people except for Big Boss because they got into a knife fight. So he respects the guy for making it out of the knife fight alive. Somehow Big Boss manages to get Dr. Kang to find a place for him to talk to the North Korean soldier by themselves. Now, these are still two people recovering from multiple gunshot wounds, but they managed to get out of their hospital room, which is guarded by a whole bunch of military types, to make their way to this CT scanning room by themselves. And as they're talking, I guess the guy from North Korea tells enough information to Big Boss for Big Boss to think, okay, I think we may be onto something. Then the guy from North Korea, somehow or another, after he's talked with Big Boss, picks the lock to the handcuffs because he comes back into the hospital room after they've been in the CT scan room. They handcuff him to the bed. The guard leaves. Now, this is like a high stakes political prisoner / wanted by Interpol guy. There's no guards in the room, which is crazy. So he's by himself. He takes his IV out of his arm, picks the lock, throws something out the window, breaks the window, kind of hangs down, breaks the window again into the hospital room, the floor below. And when he gets to that room, Big Boss somehow or another is managing to wait for him with a gun pointed at him like, you're not going to go anywhere. You tell me what you're doing. None of this makes sense. But somehow or another, the guy from North Korea is like, okay, I'll tell you what's happening. Let's make a deal. And they're able to kind of set up the real bad guy. So this is the story. I'm going to break it down here. I know this review is terrible. Okay, so the guy from North Korea, Captain Scar, this is what happened. He found out that he and the rest of his highly trained soldiers, because he's like the alpha team of North Korea, like they're that kind of guy. He and the rest of his team, apparently somebody higher up in government is making members of his team go out and do like contracted hits for like mafia guys in Japan and different places all around the world. So instead of being like soldiers like they are, they're being turned into bounty hunters. So he goes to Japan to kill this one guy who is a bounty hunter because he's brought disrespect onto the Republic. And he finds out that his actual like next in command, like a head guy in the government, the head guy in the government is the one who's actually selling out these soldiers and getting kickbacks from it. So he wanted to kill this guy, Chief Choi, because he's the one that's selling out these soldiers as bounty hunters and is making North Korea look bad. So that was what he was doing down there. And the microchip he had in his arm was actually a bunch of paper trails of where the money was being funneled from one person to another, which soldiers were being sold off, who was actually buying them, all this kind of stuff. So Big Boss finds all this out, and they stage a thing where they're going to turn the guy from North Korea over to the North Korean government. And when they turn him over to the North Korean government, he ends up in a hotel room with Chief Choi. And Chief Choi is like, you know what? I got some snipers on the building next door. You're going to have a little accident. And the guy from North Korea gets shot trying to attack Chief Choi one last time to kind of, get the final revenge or finish his mission, whatever else. But he gets shot before he has a chance to kill Chief Choi. So Chief Choi leaves the hotel room, goes to meet the guy from North Korea to finish their summit talks. And of course, he gets the summit meeting. He's like, fuck you, we're not going to do anything for you. We're North Korea, kiss our ass. And the guy from South Korea is like, you might not want me to kiss your ass yet because it looks like your ass is in hot water because I've got all these receipts of where you've been selling off your men to the highest bidder. So now Chief Choi's under arrest. The Captain Scar's under arrest, and Captain Scar apparently had like a wire that taped all of this meeting and everything else. He was working with Big Boss, and at the end of the thing, Captain Scar gets sent back to North Korea with the remnants of a choco pie in his belly, and I guess all's well that ends well. I feel like this was the most convoluted, just squirrely thing ever, and I know even me explaining it to you, it really makes no sense, but I tried my best. So that whole thing is going on. Now, outside of that, Dr. Kang, of course, is like worried sick because she's being involved in the spy mission when she really doesn't want to. She's worried about Big Boss, who is not doing anything to help his health. She's worried about Lieutenant Wolf because him and Lieutenant Yoon, not Lieutenant Wolf, he's like Sergeant Wolf. She's worried about Wolf and Lieutenant Yoon because they're not really getting along. And then the hospital, for some reason, they're going to bill Dr. Kang for the windows that the guy from North Korea broke, because the guy from North Korea came in with the soldier from South Korea, who happens to be Dr. Kang's boyfriend. Now, in America, had this happened at a hospital, the hospital wouldn't be billing any of the three individuals we just named here. The person who would be billed would be the U.S. military, because somebody who was in U.S. military custody damaged property, and the U.S. military is the responsible party because they brought that person into the facility. In fact, I will tell you this much as well. The only reason why the guy from North Korea and Big Boss would even be in that hospital's ER is because it was the closest emergency room to the site of the accident, and they just needed to have them stabilized enough to take them to a military hospital. They wouldn't even be convalescing in that expensive, nice hospital. They would be at the military hospital being treated. So that's what I'm saying. Like, all of everything that happened was this big plot device to make this whole thing work. And the thing is, I feel like none of that was needed. Like, we started this whole plot line with the North Korean guy, then we wrapped it up. We did it all in 2 episodes. It was just like filler until we can get to the main thing. And there was a lot more other stuff that happened in this episode that were quiet moments that I really would have liked to have seen more expansion on instead of this whole political intrigue thing. For instance, Dr. Song and Dance. Turns out that Dr. Song had lent Nurse Dance a big sum of money to help pay her sister's tuition, and that Nurse Dance had finally managed to pay him off. And I'm beginning to think that the reason why she's always been putting him off is because she didn't feel comfortable dating him while she still owed him money. But now that she's got him paid off, she feels more comfortable to maybe give in to her feelings. So he asked her to go with him to buy a car, because when they were in Urk, he said, when I come back, I'm going to spend my bonus on a car. And he's kind of like trying to trick her into saying that she likes him. But of course, she's not going to be tricked. She just flat out says, yeah, I like you. Let's go on a date. And he, of course, is like, yes! Woohoo! So I'm so glad they're back together. That was an important moment. There was a really cute scene in the coffee shop with Wolf, Lieutenant Yoon, Big Boss, and Dr. Kang, where they go to this coffee shop, which was the same coffee shop that the guys were in episode 1 when they had their dates, which were the stuffed animals. And the guy at the restaurant was like, I remember you guys, you came in here with your dates before. And the girls, of course, are like ready to pounce on him. And the guy's like, yeah, the stuffed rabbit and the stuffed fox, right? And of course, you know, the guys are like, ha, told you, we were in here with no other girls. But Big Boss talks about kind of like what happened that day, because that was the day he met Dr. Kang. But he talks about how Wolf wanted to keep the phone because there were important pictures on it. Well, Lieutenant Yoon grabs the phone to look at the pictures, and it's nothing but pictures of the license plates of various taxis. And she's like, I thought you had pictures of me on here. What the hell is this? Well, Wolf explains that when they broke up, he deleted all the pictures he had of like her face and them together off of his phone. But he saved these pictures because to him, these pictures represented her. And the reason why he had those pictures of those taxis is because when they would go on dates before, he wasn't used to going on dates because, you know, low self-esteem. So they would always go out drinking, and he would get too drunk to drive her home. So he would send her in a taxi, but he would take a picture of the license plate of every taxi she was in when she went home, just in case anything happened to her. And of course, we're all like, oh, that's the sweetest thing ever. Because it really is, it's not only sweet, but it's like completely completely ingenious. Like, if you have a friend and you and your friend are going out for drinks one night and your friend goes home early in a taxi, take a picture of the license plate of the taxi. That way, if anything happens, you're like, well, this was the last vehicle she got in the last time I saw her. So I think that's like really smart, actually. Like, that's a good tip to keep in your mind for future reference. But yeah, that was really cute. Lieutenant Yoon and Wolf were having some kind of talk in the car. This car is a weird car. I guess the car drives itself, because there were long stretches of time where he was not looking at the road. He was looking at her and kissing her, and they were interacting. And the car, I guess, was just piloting itself. I don't know. I need more explanation on that. There were a lot of commercials in this episode. There was a big Subway commercial, and there was a big Dalcom coffee shop commercial. But yeah, I would have liked to see more of that. I would like to see more of how Dr. Kang is going to get her clinic off the ground, if she's going to stay with the Hanseng Hospital Group. If she is, she's going to try to fight her way back up when this whole hospital seems super corrupt. Is she going to try to get maybe some of her other friends from the hospital to go in with her on getting her own clinic? I don't understand why Onu doesn't chip in and help her out. I'm not saying that he has to give her money, but you know, Dr. Onu has seen what a capable doctor she is. He knows she's smart. He's got family that's got money. She's not going to open a full hospital. She just wants to open like a clinic. He could be a shareholder in her clinic, and his family would still get money from her by lending her the money themselves. So I don't understand why that's not happening. Maybe that will happen later. I would like to see if Nurse Choi finally gets her act together. I want to know what happened to Key. Little Private Key. I mean, we left him in Urk. We don't know what happened to him after that. You know, what's going to happen with that? There's like so many other things I kind of wanted to hear about. And we had this whole political subplot. And maybe it's because they felt like these other storylines were kind of thin. But I felt like it just took away from the more precious moments of the show. Because really, when it comes down to it, sometimes the show does test your logic as an audience member. But you care about the characters so much that it's the times when they're interacting with each other that really keep me watching. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more about the human stories and a little less the whole political thing. Or if we are going to have the political thing, I think the best time when it's been utilized was like during the earthquake. Like, when I think about this series, even though the series isn't over yet, but we only got 2 more episodes. When I think about this series and I think about like my favorite sets of episodes, the earthquake thing is by far my favorite set of episodes, because that was like the best kind of cross referencing or cross culture, cross intersection of the medical, the military, and the romance. Because a lot of personal stories are being told in a situation that was high pressure, high stress, and required every single person in the cast to give of themselves to contribute to this situation. Everybody had really good parts. Oh, another thing that's not resolved. What is the deal with Daniel and the half Russian, half Korean nurse? Do we know where they are? Do we know what they're doing? Do you remember when Daniel first appeared and he said that their friend had gone home? We still don't know what that's about. So, I mean, there's some room to wrap up some more loose ends, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like while it was interesting while we were watching it, it just took away from the storyline that I thought we had with the characters we've already been introduced to, and, you know, the trials and tribulations that they were going through as, you know, civilians and military people. But that's all for now. This has been a really long review because I tried so hard to explain some stuff that just really wasn't worth trying to explain. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will try to do better on my next one, because the next one should be the last one. And usually my finale videos are okay. I mean, I don't want to give myself too much credit, but usually the finale videos are the best ones because it gives us a chance to kind of look back at the series and really take our time and enjoy some of the highlights and, you know, rag on some of the lowlights. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!